Today we're looking at reasons people should stop moving to the United States. 3 years ago we sort of touched on this subject in a video, and I was flooded with emails from people that have lived in the United States and gone back to their country, some who are still here, and a whole bunch that wanted to come to the United States. Now, before I get rolling, I love the United States. I serve my country, and I doubt I will ever move to another country to live, like permanently. But when people ask me if they should move to the US, I give them the same answer I give my heavy drinking uncle who asks if he can stay for a couple months. Now's not a good time. And I think your parole keeps you in Mississippi, Jerry, doesn't it? That last part is just from my Uncle Jerry. So I asked 33 people a series of questions, and these were all people from other countries. I also did a little research, and I'm lucky enough to have a friend who has been a staffing headhunter for 25 years for IT companies. She had an insane amount of information about what foreigners, both legal and illegal, have to go through when they get to the United States, what they hate, what they love, different things like that. But I took all the information I got from all those sources and I came up with the 10 reasons you might not want to move to the United States. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, immigration challenges. Now this part's kind of basic, and I think most anyone that's coming to the country knows it's not going to be an easy process. I mean, there's almost no country where it's an absolute easy process. The process of immigrating can be long, stressful, and uncertain. With tough visa requirements and potential legal hurdles, doing it legally sometimes can take years, like several years. Of course, you have the language barrier and just general fitting in. If you're coming here legally, like for a tech job or something like that, chances are you're going to have a pretty good grasp of the English language, or you've got it down pat. If you're coming here through the southern border or something like that, chances are you're not speaking too much English. 74% of the people coming through the southern border don't speak English. I've seen other surveys where they say that number is closer to 90%. That one I think is a little unrealistic. Number 9, the stress overload. Now, that's what my friend Diana, the headhunter, she called it, the stress overload. This is many layers. First of all, there's a lot of stress when it comes to moving to a new country, new state, new city. If you're coming from another country, think of all the things you have to do pretty much in the same week or month, usually a couple days. If you're not coming to the United States with a job lined up from a company that's, going to set you up everywhere, because a lot of these IT companies will get them apartment, will get a lot of their stuff taken care of, and they'll have a person at the company that will help them navigate the United States systems, so to speak. But let's say you're not coming in that situation. In the first week, you're moving, you're trying to settle in while you're dealing with work, maybe looking for a job or school, dealing with school stuff. You got to find a place to live. You got to deal with banks. You got to go to the DMV. If you're coming here without a job and without family, you have to hit the ground running in the United States. Your first couple months will be extremely stressful. My friend said she doesn't know how many phone calls she's had from, let's say, the wife of someone that moved to the country. He's working and she's trying to figure all this stuff out, like the DMV, like her health insurance, all that stuff's trying to be figured out. And she said, I get these people that are in tears because it's just too much for them. It's not like other countries. She said, next thing you know, they're actually sick from the stress and they can't work or they can't do this. They're just falling apart because it's very stressful. The work culture in the United States is very demanding. And yes, before you say anything, there are countries like Japan and a few other ones that have way worse work-life balance than we do. But here in the United States, compared to most countries, we have a very demanding work culture with long hours and limited vacation time, which can lead to burnout and a lot of stress. You need to understand that if you're moving to the United States. That was something that came up with a lot of the people that I had asked these questions. That the work-life balance they felt it wasn't fair is what they were saying. A lot of people from Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany, actually Spain also, brought this up. And it was a big negative for them. And I think a few of them went back home because the work-life balance and our work culture wasn't really what they were used to or what they wanted. Number 8, the streets aren't paved with gold. Now this one's not going out to, let's say, the Asian countries and the European countries as much as Central and South America and Mexico. A lot of the people making that trek just think as soon as they get to the United States, everything's going to be better. We're a wealthy country, and they just, a lot of times, are under the illusion that the United States is just filled with money. Then they hear about different places like in California and New York where different parts of the welfare system will give them money so they could survive. Now, if you're used to a place that your rent every month is 125 American dollars, and you find out if you go to some place like San Francisco and they're going to give you a card that's loaded with like $700 on it, a lot of them don't realize $700 doesn't go far in a place like San Francisco. A lot of people that are just coming to the United States to, let's say, try and work out a better life than they could in Mexico or someplace in Central or South America, they decide to head back. Now, if they're trying to escape, cartels or extreme poverty, they'll probably stick it out. They get here and they realize the cost of living in the U.S. isn't great. I mean, there's other countries that are more expensive, but not many. A lot of them come to the United States legally because they got accepted into a university. They don't realize how expensive it's going to be once they get here. More than a few that I talked about they thought it was insane how much our student loans were and things like that. One man in particular, his kids were getting to the high school level and he moved back to Denmark because he didn't want his kids going to a university in the United States. It would cost too much. He was talking about how the schools are great. It's just, are they worth the price? Number 7, feelings of isolation. Sometimes you move to another country and you might not fit in, and that kind of makes you feel like you're not as good as the locals. This can really mess with your self-confidence, your work, and even your health. My friend said that's why a lot of people will fulfill like a 1-year contract they have with the company and then head back to their country. They never fit in. They never felt welcome. They didn't understand the culture as well as they thought they would. You're moving to another country, and again, if you're not fleeing cartels or extreme poverty, there's a lot more motivation to go back when things aren't going your way. I mean, you come here, you leave your network of friends, your family, and all the handy contacts you rely on. Starting from scratch can feel pretty lonely, making solving everyday problems even harder. Call it homesickness, whatever. When you leave your home country, it's not just the country, it's not just the place. It's the people, the memories, the culture, all the things that made you who you are, and you kind of leave it behind. Put that all together with the stresses we had talked about earlier, makes it easier to pack up and head home. And a lot of them do. Number 6, the healthcare system. One of the biggest complaints from just about anyone that moves to the United States is our healthcare system. It is a great healthcare system as far as outcome. It's not the best, but it's pretty good, especially compared to a lot of third world countries. It's the cost. People from other countries find that just weird how much we pay for medical. The healthcare system in the United States can be complex and expensive, especially if you're not covered by your employer-sponsored insurance. Out-of-pocket costs can be astronomical for serious conditions. You can roll the dice at the county hospital, but they're not going to fix anything unless you're about to die. If you look at where the United States sits as far as ranking their healthcare, most companies that rank them put them right around number 30. Cuba is ranked ahead of the United States. One study had the United States at number 30 and Cuba was 13. We barely beat Uzbekistan. The worst part about it, ours is the most expensive. Number 5, gun violence. Now, this one isn't brought up as much with people coming through the southern border, but when you're talking about people coming from Europe, India, and other Asian countries, this is a big deal for them. They see all the news reports, they hear the stories, they see the stats, and it's pretty scary. Of course, you hear it a lot because it gets clicks, and that's not just here in the United States, that's other countries too. So anytime there's any sort of gun violence, it hits the news, international news. It's horrible. I'm not saying it's not that bad. It is. But like anything else, they're going to blow it up in the news so they can get their clicks. They asked people coming to the United States legally, was gun violence a concern? 87% said yes. 30% of the people that returned home after spending at least a year in the United States said gun violence played a big part in why they went home. Number 4, racial tensions. Racial tensions and issues with systemic racism can impact the quality of life on people of color. It's not just here in the United States, it can be anywhere. This influences where you can live, work, and how you're treated by society and the legal system. This was also a big thing that a lot of them noticed, and a lot of the times why they went back to wherever they came from. I saw different studies, so I'm not sure which one, but I saw one study that said about 15% of the people that had moved to the United States from Asia said that why they went back was the racism. European people, it was only about 10%, and almost 40% of the people returning to Mexico, Central America, or Colombia said it was racism. The UN did a study back in 2020, and one of the questions they asked people that turned down jobs in the United States, did racism play a part in your decision? 74% said the racism is a deal breaker for them. Now that was 2020, 4 years ago, 3.5, whatever, but that wasn't that long ago. Number 3, consumerism. Now, this one I got from a lot of them, that we spend a lot of money on stupid stuff, and they felt pressured to actually spend money on stuff when they moved here. Most countries are not like us. They don't spend like we do. There's a reason that channels like mine make more money than channels, let's say, that are talking about Europe the same way I do, or their audiences in Europe or Asia or something like that. American audiences are more willing to spend money. So they're more valuable to an advertiser or to a company trying to sell their product than, let's say, Eastern Europe or Asia. This is how bad it is. Let's say you had 2 channels exactly the same. One is my channel, and the other one is doing the same exact thing, same amount of views, everything, but they're talking about Europe only. I will probably make 3 times more money than them. And it's because of our culture of consumerism. Companies know Americans will spend money and buy things. It's probably why we also have so much credit card debt. Number 2, the job market. If you're moving to the United States to find a job, it's not going to be that easy, especially with the way the United States is towards foreigners right now. I mean, any country you go to, the locals don't really like it when foreigners come there and start working. That's just a fact of life. It happens in every single country. If I got a job in Botswana tomorrow, working on an assembly line, I'm sure the locals at the plant would not like me because I obviously just stole a job from one of their relatives. That's just not a feeling, and it's just not thought process for the United States. Every country's like that. But right now, we're a little bit more. Right, like we talked about earlier, the racial tensions going on right now in the United States are pretty high. And this leads into the job market. They're already highly competitive, and especially for immigrants who may face additional barriers such as language barriers, recognition of foreign qualifications. You know, if some guy in the United States applies for a job and he has a resume that says he graduated from Stanford, some other guy shows up and he's got a degree from the University of Mumbai. Who do you think's getting that job? The University of Mumbai might be the greatest university on the planet. The people hiring you might not understand that. There's all kinds of hurdles. I'm just giving you a couple examples, but there are all kinds of hurdles in the job market these days, and it's just going to get worse. The United States is going through this period where we're like pulling back a little bit. You keep hearing at all these different political rallies, America First type stuff. Which on the surface, it's a great idea. You should take care of the people in your country first. Most other countries do that before they help us. But there's been a lot of racism that's been involved in it these days. And that's where it gets bad. I'm not talking bad about the United States. Every country has their things like this. We're no different. The subject of this video just happens to be the United States. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There is a link for that down below. Love it if you went over there and watched some videos and subscribed. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, the politics. So here's the thing with what's going on in the United States. Our politics are insane right now. Americans are at each other's throats because of politics. Politicians in recent years have really learned how to turn up the heat on the American public. They're pushing all the right buttons on the American population, getting them angry about things, getting them angry at each other, getting them angry at foreigners. The next election could make it a lot worse for foreigners. And that's something you need to be aware of if you're moving to the United States. Politics has never been a comfortable conversation. I mean, it's always gotten a little bit heated. And that's not, again, not just here in the United States. Any place in the world they have elections, the locals are going to, have heated discussions. We've gone beyond heated discussions here in the United States. And sadly, a lot of it is directed towards foreigners right now. And I can tell you, it's not going to get easier. It's not going to get better. It's going to continue to get worse, at least for a couple more years. Right now, one of the political things that is involving foreigners is if you cross the southern border into Texas or Arizona, even if you end up in Florida, they will bus you up to New York or Massachusetts, sometimes California. This has created a lot of other problems. In the last few months, they're realizing a lot of these people will end up in New York or New York City or wherever it's cold. They don't want to be there. They wanted to be in Texas or they wanted to be in California, so they start making their way to Texas or California. And if you're coming to the United States and you're not familiar with how big we are, you got a long trip ahead of you, especially if you don't own a car. A lot of the people will leave New York and they've realized this is happening and they end up in Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska. They're trying to get to California, and a lot of times they don't have the money to do it. They don't have the means to do it. So they're just ending up in the middle of the country right now. This is just creating more tension. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.